awe tugira igihugu kizira ibiyobyabwenge. Rubyiruko nimwe musingi ukomeye w'igihugu. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Ubujiji ni inzitizi ku iterambere. Buri mwana w'umunyarwanda agomba kwiga. Ubumenyi inzira y'iterambere. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Umutekano w'imibereho iterambere ry'umuturage. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM. Twese hamwe birashoboka.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
Tuned to Radio Imanzi broadcasting from Kigali. Here is the news in English, brought to you by Fiona Umuganwa. The headlines. Tito Rutaremara, the chairperson of Rwanda Elders Advisory Forum, says Rwandans, particularly the young generation, need to understand their roles and choose the right leadership to drive the country's development. Senior Presidential Advisor on Security, General James Kabarebe, has called upon the youth to embrace Rwanda's continued struggle for better things, saying the country has not yet reached where it has to be. South African police are investigating the discovery of at least 21 bodies suspected of being illegal miners. Welcome back. News in detail. Tito Rutaremara, the chairperson of Rwanda Elders Advisory Forum, says Rwandans, particularly the young generations, need to understand their roles and choose the right leadership to drive the country's development. The call was made in a Twitter space he hosted, where he held discussions on generations of Rwanda since the colonial era. He enlightened that each generation had a mission to accomplish, but not all of them were able to discover or achieve theirs due to lack of good leadership. He explained that those are the generations who lived through colonization from 1930 to 1950, sought independence 1950 to 1960, and witnessed the reign of Parmehutu, a party that emphasized ethnicity in Rwanda and proclaimed Hutu supremacy over Tutsis in 1960 to 1980. According to him, the latter existed concurrently with the generation that sought Rwanda's liberation in 1987 to 1995. Then came the post-genocide generation, 1995 to 2021, which rebuilt the country after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, and the generation 2020-2050, which is entrusted with the country's future. He described the 1995 to 2021 generation as fortunate to have leaders who set an example for them, with a mission to build the country and protect its sovereignty, while the generation from 2020 to 2050 is tasked with fostering national immunity. He says this generation has leaders who provide it with everything it requires, including politics, ideology, and guidelines to ensure Rwanda's continued prosperity. They may be living in the most peaceful Rwanda than other generations, but they have an even bigger mission to fulfill. The Twitter space, which was joined by over 800 people from both the local and diaspora communities, lasted for over 2 hours. People asked a wide range of questions from the topic of the day to other subjects covering political and public interest. Rutarimara went on to respond to each of them, emphasizing the importance of every generation understanding the country's history, vision and challenges in order to accomplish their respective missions. Senior Presidential Advisor on Security, General James Kabarebe, has called upon the youth to embrace Rwanda's continued struggle for better things, saying the country has not yet reached where it has to be. Kabadebe made the remarks while speaking during a public lecture that he delivered to youth volunteers based in Kigali. He said the struggle we have won is to the struggle we have now is to make sure that we don't lose the purpose, because this is historically possible. There are many examples of places where struggle started well, but along the way they got diverted and got lost. He warned his audience that failure to work hard to take the country where it has to be has a heavy cost to it, especially considering factors including the fact that Rwanda is not rich in terms of natural resources, has a small geographical area, and is located in a region that is characterized by a volatile geopolitics. He also took good time to talk to his listeners about the history of the liberation struggle from his perspective as a person that took part in it. Narrating various events that comprised the struggle from 1990 to 1994, he told the youth that it was a story that started with excitement for returning to Rwanda, but later turned out to be marked with extreme suffering to almost the brink of extinction. He says in 1990, when the struggle started, everyone saw it as a suicidal move, he said, but they remained on purpose, fought selflessly, and did not give up when many of their counterparts got killed in battle. Civil society has raised alarm over the low rate at which perpetrators of sexual violence against minors get investigated, prosecuted, and convicted. Statistics from the National Public Prosecution Authority show that for the last 5 years, between 2017 to 2022, 20,095 child defilement case files were handled by prosecution. Yet out of this number, only 11,856 case files, representing 58.9%, were filed in courts. A staggering 8,104 case files, representing 40.3%, were dropped at the prosecution level. At the court level, out of the 11,856 case files that were presented, only 9,350 cases, representing 98.8%, have been decided by the judges, while more than 20% are still awaiting verdicts. The prosecutors have won just 6,615 cases out of the 9,350 decided cases, representing 70.7%, a number which is below the 85% conviction rate targeted by the National Public Prosecution Authority. Africa Frederick, an inspector at National Public Prosecution Authority, in a media interview said the prosecutors are faced by a number of challenges in regard to getting enough evidence in sexual and gender-based violence cases, partly due to the fact that some victims do not want to share detailed information about what happened to them. The Center for the Rule of Law, CERULA, a non-government organization that works to promote the rule of law in Rwanda, decried the huge mismatch between the investigated cases and those that get prosecuted, yet sexual gender-based violence cases have been on the increase. Despite the fact that Rwanda has an enabling legal policy and institutional framework to prevent sexual and gender-based violence. Serula is concerned that the number of cases for the gender-based violence continue to rise and the perpetrators are not adequately held accountable. John Mudachikwa, the executive director of Serula, warned that if such crimes are not tried and the perpetrators get punished, it can make the society think that these are light crimes, yet they are really big. According to Serula, some of the causes for inadequate prosecution and conviction of the perpetrators of sexual and gender-based violence include inadequate reporting of the crime, where victims, their family members, community members, and even sometimes local leaders are reluctant to promptly report cases of sexual and gender-based violence. The NGO also cited poor preservation of evidence by victims, which this results into lack of sufficient, compelling evidence to incriminate the suspects. The organization said the majority of cases are dropped at both the investigation and prosecution level due to lack of compelling evidence beyond reasonable doubt to adduce before courts of law. Digitalizing the customs operations has a potential to boost intra-Africa trade and ensure effective revenue collection, according to tax authorities. At a high-level customs digitalization forum taking place in Kigali, delegates said that for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to succeed, countries need to integrate ICT in their customs administration. The forum being held from today to 4th under the theme leveraging on ICT to boost intra-African trade has been attended by customs and excise officials from 30 countries from Eastern and Southern Africa and across the world. Though all countries in the Eastern Southern Africa region have digitalized their customs services according to the World Customs Organization, only a few of them have advanced systems, namely South Africa, Mauritius, Kenya, and Rwanda. Jean-Louis Kaliningondo, the Deputy Commissioner General of the Rwanda Revenue Authority, said if countries digitized customs, they would improve the efficiency of their operations and taxpayers and importers' compliance. Rwanda's new fund, dubbed Green Investment Facility, which is solely dedicated to financing private investors' green projects, is expected to be launched at the 27th UN Climate Conference taking place from November 8th to November 18th in Egypt. Teddy Mugabo, the CEO of Rwanda Green Fund, known as Fonerwa, which provides grants to public, private and NGOs initiatives, says the new financing facility for only private sector green projects will be managed in partnership with the Development Bank of Rwanda. Mugabe was talking in a dialogue dubbed Accelerating Green Investment and Green Investment Opportunities. She said through the project preparation facility, they want to support entrepreneurs by giving them business development support, or they might need the grant to test their products that like a proof of concept. She also highlighted that this window also finance feasibility studies for projects such as renewable energy projects. Commercial cyclists in Karongi district have been called upon to desist from unlawful practices and to work with security organs to fight and prevent crimes. The district police commander, SP Roja Mohodari, made the call while addressing commercial cyclists in Gishura sector, Chinihasel in Madjohe village. This comes after a public exercise to dispose of assorted counterfeit goods, which was seized in Karongi district during Usalama 8th 2022 operations conducted in September. Counterfeit goods worth over 76 million rand and francs were seized countrywide in the joint operations conducted by Rwanda National Police, Rwanda Investigations Bureau, Rwanda Food and Drugs Authority and other institutions. SP Mhodari warned the cyclists against facilitating smugglers and drug traffickers. He urged them to instead report those who try to hire them to transport their unlawful goods. He further reminded them to operate safely on the road to avoid causing or involving in accidents, as they are among the majority victims of road accidents.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The Rwanda Stock Exchange Market Report. The trading session recorded its turnover of 7,968,000 Rwandan francs from 38,600 shares traded in 5 deals on the equities market and 2,180,000 Rwandan francs worth of bonds traded in 1 deal on the fixed income market. Bank of Kigali closed the counter at 272. The trading session recorded its turnover of 7,546,600 Rwandan francs from 28,800 shares traded in 3 deals. Indem Bank counter closed at 43 Rwandan francs. The trading session recorded its turnover of 421,400 Rwandan francs from 9,800 shares traded in 2 deals. The rest of the equities counters closed with Bralirwa at 170 Rwandan francs, Simedwa at 120 Rwandan francs, M10 Rwanda at 174 Rwandan francs, Equity Bank at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Chumi Supermarket at 104 Rwandan francs, and R8 Buffalo closed the counter at 526 Rwandan francs as the market closed. The currency market review of today. Burundian franc buying price 0.5 and the selling price 0.51. Ugandan shilling buying price 0.27 and the selling price 0.272. Tanzanian shilling buying price 0.44 and the selling price 0.45. Kenyan shilling buying price is 8.5 and the selling price is 8.7. The euro buying price 1,022 and the selling price 1,043. British pound buying price 1,187 and the selling price 1,210. The US dollar buying price 1,040 and the selling price 1,060.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Kenya today sent more than 4 tons of food donations to survivors of a twin bomb blast that rocked Mogadishu on Saturday. The twin attack became the latest but most deadly terror incident in Somalia since October 2017. At least 100 people died and another 300 were wounded in the attack near offices of the Federal Ministry of Education. Following the Sunday attack, Somalia President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud promised a relentless war against Al-Shabaab militants who are believed to be behind the bombing. The fire burning on Mount Kilimanjaro for almost 2 weeks has been largely contained after hundreds of military personnel were deployed to help, according to Tanzania's Prime Minister. He said the blaze destroyed 33 square kilometers, nearly 13 square miles, on Africa's largest and most famous mountain. The fire started on October 21st near the Karanga camp, which is popular among the thousands of hikers who attempt the climb of the mountain every year. The cause of the fire is yet to be established as investigations are ongoing, the Prime Minister said, adding that strong winds complicated the response. Uganda's Health Minister Jane Ruth Acheng towards the new treatment center, which was built by the charity Doctors Without Borders alongside U.S. Ambassador to Uganda Natalie Brown and other health agencies officials. According to health officials, the 42-bed facility for Ebola patients designed to help patients recover quickly and also reduce the stress of isolation. Dr. Acheng said with this new facility, relatives, friends can come and visit the patients. Kenya's athletics reputation took a blow after the suspension this year of an unusually large number of long-distance runners for suspected doping. A top athletics Kenya official even warned that the nation was at risk of an international ban, with 25 athletes hit this with sanctions and 19 active cases pending in 2022 alone, despite renewed efforts to stamp out the scourge. Top Kenyan sportsmen have spoken out against the use of performance-enhancing drugs, with marathon star Eliud Kipchoge calling it a national embarrassment. Guinea's ruling military is calling for the prosecution of former President Alpha Conde, whom it overthrew in a coup in 2021. The prosecutions are for alleged acts of corruption, illicit enrichment, money laundering, forgery and use of forgeries in public writing, embezzlement of public funds and complicity. They are also calling for the prosecution of some over 180 senior officials and former ministers for alleged corruption. The military, which took power more than a year ago, has made the fight against corruption one of its major proclaimed battles, and many former officials have already been detained in this context. But in his public letter sent to the Attorney General today, the Minister of Justice took a new step because he targeted the former head of state by name, as well as a large number of his executives when he was in power. Among them are former Prime Minister Ibrahim Kassory Fofana and some 40 former ministers such as Mohamed Diane in Defense, Mamadi Kamara in Economy and Mariama Kamara in Trade. A number of presidential advisors under the Conde regime were also named. In total, the Minister of Justice, Alphonse Charles Wright, gave a list of 188 names, some of which are already in prison and others cited several times. Their accounts are frozen. South African police are investigating the discovery of at least 21 bodies suspected of being illegal miners found near an active mine in the town of Krugersdorp, west of Johannesburg. According to police, 19 bodies were discovered on Wednesday afternoon and 2 more were discovered this morning. The police said they suspect the bodies were moved to their location where they were found, which is a privately owned mine. The grim discovery is the latest in a series of incidents related to illegal mining in the Krugersdorp area. In July, 8 female members of a film crew were raped and robbed at an abandoned mine in the area where they were working on a music video shoot. With that, we come to the end of tonight's edition.